Hello everyone, welcome to this new stream from Algorithmic. Today we're going to be taking a look at Substance Designer 6. So we just released Substance Designer 6 yesterday. And we also released a comprehensive set of tutorials. So we've got a new course on Substance Academy, which is going to cover a lot of the new features we're going to kind of go over here today. Today we're going to take a look at more of a high-level look, and then we're going to deep dive in some of these features as well. So like if you want to get like more of a step-by-step look, be sure to check out our course over at Substance Academy. All right, so for today, like I said, we are going to take a look at Designer 6. So yeah, we're all very excited for this release here at Algorithmic. It was a tough time kind of running through, getting everything together, but we all had a very good time the last couple weeks, polishing up these features and getting everything out. And so, we really hope that this release is something that that has a little something for everybody. So what we're going to do today, like I said, is just take a look at some of these features. All right, so let's just get started by jumping right into Substance Designer 6. Okay, so some of the things that I'm going to talk about just to start, we're going to run through just a few kind of preference things. And also with that, we'll take a look at some kind of updated workflows. So if we come up here to Edit and you go to your Preferences, you'll notice that we've kind of rearranged some of these tabs here. So if we come over our projects here or go to our project category, here's where you're going to see that we have basically taken out or taking these preferences, and we've just categorized them in here into these tabs. And so here you'll see things like 3D view, our aliases, baking, general, and so on. And all these things are still here, but we have, a couple extra features. And so one of the things that I want to talk about to start is here underneath general. So underneath this miscellaneous category, we've added this new format for you to make like a global switch, so to speak, on how you're going to work with your normal map format. So with that, you can see that default, I have mine set to DirectX. But if you are going to be working in OpenGL, you could set this to OpenGL. And so now, whenever you create a new graph, everything's going to be working based on this OpenGL setting. So let's take a look at how that works. Also here, you've got this normal filter alpha channel content. So what this means is basically we just made it easier to get rid of that alpha channel. So like in previous versions of Designer, you would have like an alpha when you would create your normal, and it was a real pain to deal with. So now you can just disable that completely. So what we're going to do here underneath this setting is just leave this force alpha to 1. Just means we're going to set it to white. So here I'll click apply and click OK. And just so you can see it, let's just create a new substance. I'm going to choose metal rough. And here we go. All right, so we have a substance graph that we've created here. And I'm just going to hit my space bar and just do a search here for my normal color. Actually, I don't even need to do a real search for it. If you just hit the space bar, you'll see it right here. This is just our normal node for creating, well, normals. And this is what I like to call kind of like the operational nodes. These are kind of like your main compositing nodes. So it's just right here. And so we'll grab this guy. And you'll notice that with this selected, you can see my normal format is automatically set to OpenGL for me. And that's because I set that global preference. So again, if I create something like, let's just do like a checker pattern. So we'll create this guy, and I'll just feed this right here into my normal. I'm now working here with, let me double click to view this in my 2D view. So I'm now just working with these OpenGL. And you'll also notice here in my 2D view that even though I have this alpha enabled here, so I can view alpha in the image, I don't see any alpha, which is awesome. So before we used to have this alpha, again, it was a real pain. Now we can just disable that. So one thing I want to show this, or a little caveat to this, is right now this normal format is only it's only working with this normal node. So for instance, we have another normal node which is really, really good, which is this normal Sobel node. And so if I select and create this guy here, you'll notice that its normal format is set to DirectX, so it's going to be inverted now to my project. I just want to bring that to your attention because you know this will get you. But we are going to update this node as well, so we just didn't have it for this initial release. One other thing I want to point out about this new format node is it also automatically sets the shader. So if we come over to our materials here, and this is just the default material for this cube, and I click this edit button, you'll notice here that on the material normal, the DirectX normal is set to false. And again, that's because I set that OpenGL setting. So that setting is globally going to change the format for your normal, and also it's going to change it here for the shader in your environment. So that's kind of the normal format. Let's jump back over to our preferences and see if there was anything else in here that I wanted to cover with this guy. So yeah, okay. So the other thing here was our image formats. And this is awesome too. This is like one of those features. It's a long time coming. People asked for it a lot, and it's finally here. But it's awesome that we have it. So now we have image formats, compression options. So let's say that you want to use TIFF for your exports. You know, when you do batch exports out of the graph or save images. These format options here also carry over to when you're actually baking maps with the bakers. So let's say that I want to use TIFF, but I want to use a specific type of compression. I can do that now. So you could say, no, I want to use no compression when I'm using TIFF, and then maybe when I'm at PNG, I want to set it to something else. You can actually change all this here as a global preference, and we also now give you the option to set the compression, which you didn't have before. So that's really nice. Okay, anything else? Let me just think here. Couple other things I want to point out that's new in Designer 6 as far as like workflow changes. So you'll notice that I've got my environment here. This is my 3D view, and if you didn't know, you can hold down the Shift and Control key and right mouse button to kind of rotate your environment. In Designer 6, by default, the environment visibility is turned off. So I just want to let you know that, because when I was first playing with Designer 6 and I opened it up, I was like, what's going on with my environment? I don't see it. I thought it was a problem. But we actually changed that, and we changed it for the better. There was a lot of requests of people saying, hey, can we just have that set to not visible by default, because I'm constantly having to go in and change that. So again, we'd like to listen to all the feedback that comes in from everyone, and so we just wanted to give you guys what you're asking for the most. So we just have this disabled by default. So if you didn't know and you're watching, you haven't seen this, if you just go to your environment and click edit, here's the display components. You can just toggle it on and off here. So in Designer 5 it's always on by default, and in Designer 6 it's now off by default. So just wanted to point that out in case you get confused when you see this. Okay, yeah, let's take a look at something else here. So there is another option we have. Let me come over and just open up a substance first. So here I've got some substances that I have, and this is kind of cool. In case you didn't know this, this was actually a new one on me, and I thought it was pretty cool. So here in the library, and this isn't part of Subdesigner 6. This has always done this, and so in case you didn't know, like I said, I just found out about this 2 weeks ago. So like here in the library, I set up my own kind of category where I have all my my own materials and things that I work with. But you can load these up really fast. All you have to do is just left click and drag and drop them here into the Explorer, and it's automatically going to open up your Substance. So just really kind of a quick tip there on how you can open substances really fast through the library. Now, when you have Designer 6, you can notice here that this is asking you about this format change. So it's going to ask me just to kind of update. So yes, I do want to update this. So now it's going to open up my substance for me. So it just gives me a little update report that this has been updated for Substance Designer 6. So don't get alarmed when you see that little update window when you open up your previous substances. Okay, so now I have this substance here, and I'll just, well, it's already going to view in my 3D view here. Now, one thing I need to do is I'm going to switch, let me go back and switch my, my normal here, because I set that to OpenGL, and I want to keep this at DirectX. There we go. All right, so now it's viewing correctly. All right, so just real quick, let me just take a brief moment here to check out a few questions here. So one person asked here, will it be on Steam? Yes, it will. This will be released on Steam. Honestly, I don't have a lot of information on how the Steam version works, but there is an upgrade path. When I talked to one of our marketing team members this morning, they told me that there is going to be an upgrade path for Steam. Steam is going to... there's going to be some like a coupon code or something like that through Steam. It's not something that we control, so I'm not 100% sure on that. Again, I apologize for not having that information. But if you get into trouble or you have any problems, please feel free just to tweet me directly on Twitter. I'll answer you like immediately. Or you can go to our website and under the company contact, just submit a contact reform request if you have any questions on licensing or upgrades, and we'll be happy to get that information to you. Oh, here's a question. We already have an upgrade in the Steam inventory. Ah, great, perfect. So it's already there. Okay, so like I was gonna say with this guy, I just opened up a Substance, and so now when we go to, let's see, if I go to publish this Substance here, I'm just gonna save this on my desktop. All right, so when I go to publish a Substance here, you'll notice that we have this new option here for compression. And so it gives me this compression mode. And let me just open my node on this guy here. So what this is doing is this compression doesn't affect the quality of the source images. Okay, it's just a trade-off between the size of the SBSAR and the time it takes to load in, let's say, Substance Painter or any other integration. So when I'm talking about like substances and integrations, I count Substance Painter into that because it acts like an integration where you can load in substances. So just so you know, it's not affecting the quality of the source images. It's just about being able to quickly load this up in an integration. And so you have these options here for compression mode. So best, going to give you the best quality, but slower to encode and decode. So again, I shouldn't say quality with that, so forgive me for that. What I mean best meaning like it's just going to be slower to encode and decode. When you say none, it's going to be no compression, fast encode and decode, and things like that. So it's just a new way to kind of help with the processing of the substances inside the integrations. All right, so let's say that I use none for this, and well, I'm just going to cancel it. I don't need to publish this, but anyways, we have this. Now, when you come back, there is an option here. So if I right click on my Substance, I can now choose export SBSAR file, or I've got, where I can use Control Shift P to just, export that using the last compression setting that I had, so just kind of a quick shortcut to that. All right, so those are just some of, kind of the preference stuff that I wanted to really cover. Nothing like earth shattering or anything like that, but I think it's just good to kind of cover some of those things. Now, there is a feature that we're going to cover next, which is, doesn't seem like it's major, but it's awesome for workflow. So this is a big workflow guy. All right, so when you're working with a Substance, and like you'll notice here that, let's see, let me double. So I'm just going to double click this guy in an empty area in the graph to kind of get me to my root level. And the way we've been working in previous versions of Designer, or the way I kind of taught it was, all right, you start a Substance, and the first thing that you're going to do, here, let's go over, I just have this empty package here, so let's do this. So the first thing I'm going to do is come over to my output size, and I'm going to set this to absolute, and then I'm going to set this to the resolution that I want to work at. So this is like my designing resolution. So, at 2K, this is where I want to visualize how my textures are going to be. And typically what I do with this is I tell people like, you work at the maximum resolution that you want to export your textures in. And typically that's like 2K. If you're trying to go higher than that, like 4K, I'd still recommend just working at 2K because, 4K can, start to really bog down the system as you work. But anyways, this is kind of how you would work. So you would create all your nodes and you'd have everything that you want to have. And then when it's time to publish, I would then say, come over here and switch this back to relative to parent, because you always want your Substance to be saved and published at relative to parent. And that's key for not only if you're using an integration, like if you're going to take this published Substance and use it in, say, Maya or UE4, but also if you're going to take this Substance and use it as an instance into another graph. Because you want to make sure that your resolutions are always, that they're inheriting correctly and all that. And so, hey, that worked. It was fine, but it was also like really easy to mess this up. And I did this myself all the time. And what I mean by that is I would be working at a resolution, and then I would come in here and I would leave it set at like 2K or 4K. And then I would try to instance that graph into another graph, and it would just bog the whole system down, and it would just be crazy. So my long explanation to that is that we finally added this new feature here at the top, which is one of my favorite features of SD6, and that's this parent size. So this guy is awesome. So now when you create a new substance, you just do File, you would just do this. Let's go File, New Substance. Let's say I'm working here. You always leave the size mode to relative to parent. There's no need to change this anymore. Just always leave it relative to parent. You now no longer have to worry about this base parameter output size anymore. Just who cares about it? Let's just let it go. So now basically this is just always going to resize itself to whatever host it's in, whether that be a new graph or whether that be inside Painter or inside UE4 or whatever. Now, while you're working, you want to be able to preview to a specific resolution. And now we can use this simple drop down here to change this. So for example, here, let's say that, well, hey, I want to preview this texture at 512. So now I just changed this here to 512, and it's going to recompute my whole graph at 512 by 512. And I can even unlock this here so that I can do, different resolutions. So I could have non-square. So maybe I'm designing a texture to be 2048 by 512 or something. I can do that. So here you can see that, here I'm going to set this all the way up to 2K. So now I'm just previewing at 2K. It's a really quick way. I don't have to worry about going to that root level anymore. So what's important about this is resolution that I'm setting is you need to think of it as like a preview resolution, and it's only applicable to this graph that I'm working in. So for example, here you can see that I've got my bricks here, and I've been viewing this at a 2K resolution. And like I said, I never messed with my base parameters, which is great. So now when I have this new graph here, and this new graph is set to its relative to parent, so it's at 256 by 256. So now when I take my graph and I drag and drop and instance that into here, you'll notice as soon as we get a little update here that this graph is automatically set to 256 by 256. Even though when I jump back over to my bricks graph, I'm still working and previewing at 2K. So I absolutely love this feature. This is so nice. A way to, like I said, just preview resolution. The key takeaway is that this resolution is only applicable to the graph that you're working in. And from here on out, with your base parameter, always create your substances to be relative to parent. Okay, so with that, there's another feature that I kind of want to talk about. And so here, let me come over here to this new package that I have, and let's just remove these nodes. Okay, I want to talk about this this new feature. I'm just calling it the transform widget, but I think this is really cool feature, and it's awesome if you're creating your own utilities and things like that. So what you can do now is you can expose the transform nodes widget, the transform nodes matrix as a widget in the 2D view, and it really helps when you're creating and making like your own tools and such. So let me show you how this works here. Just 1 second. Let me just check some of these questions that might be coming in. Okay, so one question that came up here, and I'm sorry I missed this, guys. One person was asking about, here, let me go back over to my bricks so you can see this. And we're going to cover this here in just a moment as well. So if I zoom in, you guys will notice that we're getting my resolution size, but we're also hitting this. You're seeing L16. Where's the other one? C8, well, C16, C16, here's one, C8, and so on. So the L stands for like linear, and the C stands for color, and the number after that's referring to the bit depth. So in this case, I'm looking at color 8. This here is linear 8, and so on. Here's color 16. So yeah, this is talking about the bit depth, and I'm going to talk to this more on in just a little bit. We're going to talk about HDR, but one of the really, really big features of Substance Designer 6 is a full HDR compositing pipeline. And so again, we'll talk about bit depths in a bit, but yes, that's exactly what we're talking about here, color bit depth. All right, so for now, let's jump back over to this widget thing. All right, so like I was saying, you can take a transform and you can expose that as like a widget for your 2D view. And it's really cool because this is going to be awesome when you're making your tools. So let me just show you how this works. So I'm going to make a here, not a uniform color, but let's do a checker. So we're going to make this little checker pattern here. And then I'm going to grab a transform 2D after this guy. And I'm just going to plug this in. So now we have this little transform. And I don't want this transform to tile, so you know, all nodes are going to tile automatically in Designer, but in case you didn't know this, you can come up to the base parameters, and under tiling mode, you can set this to be absolute, and then switch this to no tiling, if you need to turn that off. All right, so if I select this transform node like this, here in the 2D view, you can see, well, I've got this cool little transform widget, and I can, you know, do some interesting little transforms, like moves and rotates and stuff. Also, if I hold down the Alt key now, and I left click and drag on the middle little node handle here, you can skew. So this is actually new in the transform widget as well. All right, so we've always had this control like this. Now, one of the things that kind of was a pain before was, let's say that, you know, I'm creating my own substance and I want to have like this little control to a user that I want to be able to give them the ability to move and rotate on something. So what you would do is you would come over to this transform matrix, which doesn't sound difficult to use at all. And you could start to try to expose this matrix value here. So you would have offset, which makes sense. It's just X and Y, so you could expose this offset. But if you hit this little matrix button, it gives you this vector 4 bit of information that you could try to figure out how in the world this relates to transformation. Someone like me who's extremely mathematically challenged, yeah, this wasn't really a fun part of the day. So, what we ended up doing was creating a new way to kind of work with this transform node that makes it so much easier to work with. So let me show you how that works. Here's what you need to do. So let's say that I want to have this transform 2D node like this, and I want to be able to give this little easy to use tool. So what I'm going to do is come over to this transform matrix, and I need to expose this. So I'm just going to use this expose here. And you can see that the input name is set to matrix 22. All right, this is the identifier. And this is really, really key to getting this to work because the identifier is what really matters here. All right, so I'm going to click OK to that. Now, I'm going to come over to my offset, and I'm going to expose this as well. Again, notice that the input name, it automatically defaults to offset. I need to keep that. So we're going to come back to that in a second. So we expose that as offset. All right, so let's double click to go out to the root level of the graph. We've promoted this transform matrix and offset to our root level. And if we look, here's our input parameters. So if I drop this guy down or expose this, you can see the identifier was set to matrix 22. You need to make sure that you have this set as the identifier. Now, if I wanted to be able to change this, I could just give myself like, here, let me see. Let's do this. Offset. I'm just going to name this offset underscore. Okay. So you can use whatever name you want. So you want to name the tool so it's easy to use. You can name it whatever you want, just as long as you have underscore and then matrix 22. All right. So we'll keep it like that. And then I'm going to come over to my offset, and not a great name that I chose. So let's just keep it offset again. So offset, offset. Again, the key is that this underscore offset has to be there. If you're not going to name this, you don't need the underscore. Just leave it as offset and leave it as matrix 22. Okay, so now that we have this in place, let me get rid of all my outputs here. And I'm just going to plug this into this base color, even though it's gray. So this is totally a weird substance we're making here. All right, so now we've got this property. Let's go and take this into another graph. So here I have just another empty graph. Okay, so it's blank. Let's take that node, that graph that I just created, and let's instance it here into this new graph. All right, so now you can see that I've got my graph, and I have this offset, I have this exposed. Okay, so now it's exposed as this nice little UI, which you couldn't do before. But even better, I don't even need to worry about that. So now if I just double click and I select my node, I automatically get this cool transform widget that I can just turn and move around like this. So that's pretty cool. Now let's take it a step further. Let's go back into this graph where I'm working on this little tool. And yeah, naming everything new graph is pretty confusing. Okay, so let's do this. Let's do a shape. So now I'm going to add a secondary transform to this guy. And let's do a Gaussian shape. Okay, yeah, let's do something like this. And I'm going to blend these two guys together. And here I'm just going to do an add, I think. All right, so you can see I've blended these two guys together, and then I'll put this in here. All right, so now let's add another transform into this. So here comes the second transform that I want to use. Again, for this matrix here, I'm going to expose this. So I need to set a new name. Actually, I'm just going to leave it at that matrix 22 again, and then I'm going to change it. So let's do that. So let's expose that. Let's come over here to this offset, expose, and choose offset, and OK. Double click to go out to the root level of my graph. And for this guy, I'm going to call this, I don't know, sphere underscore. And again, I'm leaving that matrix 22. And let's do this one as sphere offset underscore offset. Okay, and again, I'm just putting this name in here so that it's just, I'm trying to make a user-friendly control to that. Okay, so now let's go back to our graph. All right, so here's that node. I just instanced it. Now that because I have two different transforms, I now get this cool drop down. So here you can see that it now lets me choose which one of these guys I want to work with. So for example, I have the sphere set automatically. So I have this guy selected, and now I can transform just my sphere like this. And again, I can hold down Alt and do this cool skewing and all kinds of stuff. If I want to get to my other transform, I can just select it here, and now I can move this. So I really think this is awesome. I mean, this new tool, when I saw this, I was like, yes, I mean, this is fantastic that we have this, because this is going to become really handy when you want to make your own custom tools, or you want to have just an easy way to get to a transform for one of your materials. You can just promote it that way. The key takeaway from that is just understand, again, that the way it works is when you expose, you just have to have matrix 22 and the name offset in here. And if you want to name these something more specific, just put your name and then an underscore, just prefix it with that, and you'll be good to go. So that's how you use this new transform widget. You'll notice that as we start to look at some of the newer nodes in Designer 6, this transform functionality is being used, especially in like the scan tools and such. Okay, so let's close out some of these guys. All right, and so the next thing I want to talk about is the HDR pipeline. Maybe I'll just keep this as empty for now. Yeah, I don't know. Let's just keep it empty. I don't need a bunch of outputs and stuff. Okay, let's see. Just going to do a quick check here to see if there's any questions coming in. All right, so let's start talking about the HDR. So in Designer 6, we now support a full 32-bit floating point bit depth, which is awesome. That means we can work with HDR values. And that's really exciting on many levels. One of the reasons why we started to implement this is because, the way Designer is just growing and growing, which is nice. We have a lot of focus in the games market, but we're also starting to look at new markets, visual effects, design, and we're getting a lot of interest in these fields. And so we're starting to add more features to better support these different markets. So what's really great for all of you guys out there, the Substance users, the more of these markets that we start to go into and support, the more features and things like that you guys are going to be getting. So it's really nice, I think, that Algorithmic is growing, beyond the games market. That way we're getting more and more features that are just, across the board better for everybody. So it's a pretty exciting time to be at Algorithmic as we continue to grow. All right, so with that said, let's just talk about how this HDR stuff works. It's actually really, really simple. So one of the things that I found really cool about this implementation here, let me hit the space bar, and I'm just going to create a uniform color just to start. All right, so one of the things that I found really cool about the way this is implemented is Designer it's always reminded me of a digital compositing tool. Ever since I started, the first time I saw Designer, I thought, wow, this is just like using, at the time what I was using was Shake. So I was like, wow, this is just like using Shake. I can work, just like in a digital compositing environment, except I'm just making textures in the end instead of, video sequences or whatever. So with that said, you have this implementation of this, and you can work and implement this higher bit depth or these values whenever you need them. So for example, one of the ways that we could do this is, okay, so you see we have this color, and right now it's set to C8. So what I'm going to do with this guy is just choose a color. Let's just choose like this blue value here. All right. So what we're doing right now is we're working in color. That's what the C stands for. And 8 means 8-bit depth. So there isn't like a mode that I set here in Designer. Like there isn't like a preference, or there isn't some master mode where I say, hey, I want to work in, 32-bit now. You can jump in and out of bit depths at any time, and it's just the nature of how Designer works. So let's say that in this particular example, I want to start working with some color. And so kind of the way I showed this in the tutorial, and I'll kind of go through it from here. I'm going to kind of run a little fast as I go through this, but just so you know, like I actually have a specific tutorial that does this step by step, and it's on Academy. So if you get lost, you can watch that. Okay, so the idea here is that I want to be able to start to create and edit some HDR data here within Substance Designer. Well, why would I do that? One reason I would do that is because I want to be able to create HDR information for lighting for my environments. So that's one really good way to do that. So in this particular case, we have this image here. And so what I'm going to do here is I'm going to take this image, and I can just right click and just drag and drop it right here into my 3D view. And when I let go of my mouse, you can see that I've got my panorama input for my shader. Well, I could just add this right here to the environment. Again, the environment's off, so let's just go to Environment, Edit, and I'm going to set this display component to visible so we can see this is true now. All right, so this is like my environment map. Now, for this environment map, I don't want this to be square, so what I'm going to do is just simply unlock this guy, and I'm going to set this to be 1024 by 512. So now you can see here is the texture that I'm getting. You know what? While I'm here, I'm going to show you another one of the best features here of Substance Designer. This is exciting. Okay, I know this is going to seem really trivial, but I'm sure all you guys that are watching this are just going to start just a huge grin on your face. So I zoom in, and now when I start to pan the 2D view, we can pan beyond the extents of the 2D image. This is so great, So as you recall, like in all other versions of Substance Designer, you were locked, and we couldn't do that. And people asked for this so much. So we're just so happy to finally get this in here, and here in Designer. So anyways, panning beyond the extents in the 2D view. Really nice. Okay, so you can see that I'm starting to create like this panoramic image that I'm using here for my my environment. So lots of stuff that's going on here that's not right so far. So we look at this, and I'm like, okay, well, I'm using my environment. Number one, I'm using just 8-bit depth, so I have no high dynamic range to this at all. Okay, so well, that stinks. So it's not really helping me light my environment whatsoever. Okay, so what I need to do is just come over to this node, and I can do this with any node, as I can come over to my output format, and I simply set this to absolute, and now I can set a new bit depth. And you'll notice here that we have HDR low precision 16 floating point, and then high precision 32. So you can choose which one you want to do. Here I'm going to use 32. So now I'm pushing, or I'm increasing the bit depth of what this color is going to be. Now, we haven't actually used any high dynamic colors yet. We've only used this, we've only promoted it to 32-bit, but we have no high resolution colors yet. So if we come over here to our color mode, you can see that I've got this little button here for float. So this is another new addition. So notice now I can actually set this to float, and I can start to work with floating point values, which is awesome as well. So here in this case, let's do this. I'm going to take this here. I'm going to set this to RGB, and I'm going to take the blue, and I'm going to pump this up to, let's just go above, let's go to 4. All right, so now I'm working with some values above 1. So now we're into that high dynamic range. Just so we can get a better idea of these colors, let's do this. Let me hit this info box here, the image info button. And normally what happens is this guy's like docked right here, but you can undock things. So what I'm just going to pull it up here so we can see it. So when I kind of mouse over in this area, if you look, you can see that, well, the RGB pixel value for blue is 4. So we've pushed this way up into a high dynamic range. And you can start to see where this is already, starting to light my environment so far. So we're getting, a lot of these. One question, does the slider go to 11? Let's see, it can actually go anywhere. Like, so if I pull this all the way up to here, it stops at 8. This is just kind of a way sliders work inside of Designer. So it doesn't mean it's capped at 8. That's just where it went depending on the value that I put. So it's like, almost like it puts like a min and max value based on, what initial value you have. But let's say I switch this to 12. So now it's kind of reset that range, and now it'll go up to 24. So I can just keep, increasing or decreasing this value. So if I set this back to 4, you can see the range just automatically gets updated. All right, so we've pushed that into here. So the other part of this, there's 2 parts. We just added some HDR data by pushing this a value above 1. The next part of this is that, okay, now we need to think in terms of color space. So if we look at this 2D view color, and then we look at our 3D view color, there's a huge discrepancy between these 2 guys. And that's because of the sRGB value that we're working with. All right, so on this color node, you'll notice that I have this sRGB button. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to uncheck this, and that's going to allow me to then start to choose values in linear space for my color. So here I'm just going to, again, just choose like a blue, and let's do the same thing where we pump this up pretty large to 4. All right, so we've done that. We're now put this color node into linear mode with the sRGB value disabled. However, you'll notice, well, we still get this discrepancy here. And that's because the 2D view is trying to gamma correct this. So down here at the 2D view, you have this button. Basically, it's an sRGB button. It considers this to be sRGB color space. If you're thinking in terms of digital compositing, we can think of this option like enabling a view LUT to the 2D view. So you want to disable this as well. So now when I disable this, we're now getting a true one-to-one value between what's being rendered here in our 3D view and what we're choosing here in our 2D view. So this is equal now. You need to also take a look at this thumbnail. Now this guy's still wrong, okay? This will be an update that we do later. We just didn't get to it on this first initial release. So don't worry about this thumbnail color being wrong. It definitely is wrong in the display. But now these 2 guys are the same. So the question becomes, okay, now why am I doing all that? So one thing is, if you think about the theory of rendering in linear space, one of the theory about that is, because, we want to always compute values in linear space, but the way our eyes work and computer monitors, we're not really displaying or viewing colors correctly in linear space. So we need to gamma correct these things, so that we can view them correctly, basically on a computer monitor. Very, very brief overview of how that works. But the idea here is that, you need to have like the fundamental understanding of how images are interpreted. So for example, if we come in here into this guy, or this image that we're creating, in our shader, when you are inputting in an image as input that is an HDR image, that is a high dynamic range image, that image should assume to be in linear space. So what I mean by that is our shader is not doing any gamma correction to that. And you'll find that to be in any linear workflow in rendering. Like if you're rendering in Arnold or Mental Ray or V-Ray or whatever, the HDR images are always assumed to be in linear space. So meaning that means that, well, they're authored in linear space. They're using linear values. We're not going to have to gamma correct that, because when you author HDR values, you don't author those in sRGB space. That would be incorrect. So that's why to work with this HDR data correctly in Designer, you want to make sure that you're picking the values in linear space, and then so you can view what you're picking, you need to make sure that you take that view LUT here, this sRGB, and disable that. So this way you have, you're viewing everything correctly. So that's why you need to do that step. So again, two important things to always remember with HDR here in Designer. Number one, you're going to promote this output format to, an HDR value. And then number two, you need to make sure that you're authoring the colors in linear space, because HDR maps are always assumed to be in linear space when in a linear rendering workflow. Okay, so now that we kind of have that covered, let me just close that out. Let's now take a look at how this is working. So one way to kind of show this, and I did this in the tutorial, I'm going to add a transform here to this, and I'll plug this guy in. And then here for this transform, I'm going to set this to absolute, no tiling, and then I'm just going to scale this guy down like this. So the idea here is I'm kind of making like a light panel. And then for the matte color here, this is like my background. I'm just going to pull the alpha all the way up so it's just black. So we have like black, so we're like in this dark studio, and I have this really bright blue kind of light panel. So let's use this. So I'm going to right click, drag and drop, and add this here to my latitude, longitude. So now when I start to kind of pan my light over, you can see what we're getting here. So this light panel. Okay, so the next part of this that we want to do is, now we're working with these high dynamic range values. Let's go back to my color, and I'm going to bring this value up to something really high, like say 12. Okay, so now I'm working with these high dynamic range values. All I need to do now to see some really nice blooming and such is that I need to go in and just enable my camera post effects. So I'm just going to come over here to camera edit, and you'll notice that post effects, okay, in Designer 6, post effects is disabled by default. So we just need to enable this. And so now when I do that, we're starting to get, this nice blooming. Notice again, I'm not coming over and I'm not having to set like threshold values and all that stuff. I mean, it's there, but the thing that's really kicking this or increasing this value here is the actual HDR. So let's take this up to like say 24, so you can really hopefully see it here in the video. And now you can see we're getting all this kind of blooming and light wrapping and things like that just because we're using these. Okay, so let me also take a look at some of these questions coming in here. Let's see. Okay, so yeah, one question here that came in was asking about 32 float and 16 half. Let's see. So with that, like 16, again, it's just talking about precision level from that. So I think the question, can I punch for 16 half? Yeah, so 16 floating point, it's just half precision or whatever. So it depends on what you want to work with. Like sometimes maybe 32-bit float is just way too much. You don't need that. So you can get that down. You don't have to use that much. So yeah, there was another question. Someone else replied in here that was half equals half precision float, and they kind of show some math to that, which is precisely what's going on there. So that was really good. Another question was, is there a node that will translate this into a 2 to? Yes, there is, and I'm going to show that in just a moment. So right now I'm just kind of going through just the simple aspect of how this works. Okay, so this is just showing that we're utilizing, you know, these high dynamic range images and how we work with that. Like I said, the key takeaway is, you know, you're setting your output format, and then when you're working in this with HDR data, you want to make sure that you're authoring those values in linear space for that. So that's really all there is to the HDR part of it. I mean, it's simple, it's implemented well, and like I said, it's implemented per node. So you can see that, you know, here we're working with this, and then we can, you know, down promote it. One thing that I want to show, and you know, I don't want to take too much time up, but I really thought this was awesome in terms of thinking about, you know, digital compositing and linear space and such. So I think I'll just show it anyways. But the idea is that you can get better kind of blurring and blending, mixing, or I'll say like if you're mixing or blending colors or compositing colors with blurs, you can get a much better result by doing that in linear space. So for example, here, let's get rid of, well, here, let's do it like this. So let's say that, here, let's see, yeah, let's just do like a uniform color here. And I'm going to choose just kind of like a background to this guy. In this case, I'm going to set my resolution just back to square here. Now, again, notice that I set this to square like this. Always recall here, or remember, this is just preview. So if I wanted to make this as a spherical map, I would need to set this as my output size in that particular case. All right, so here I have this node here, and let me just copy this and paste this guy. And let me grab a shape again. So we'll do something like this. Get a little square, and let me do a blend. Here, let me do it like this. Let's do RGB. Sorry about this. Let me just find the node. All right, so I'm going to do RGBA merge like this. So I'm going to put my color into here, and I'm going to take my mask and put it in like this. So this is going to create for me just this kind of colored square. The way that I did this, just as kind of like a tip, this is probably the best way to, if you needed to make like a mask of something. Sometimes what you'll see is, you know, you could do this as well. Like you could do a blend, put this in the foreground, and then put this guy in the background, and you could get the same result. But the problem with this setup is when you have this output, this plug, you know, missing like this isn't very optimized internally in the Substance engine. So this can cause some issues in your graph. I mean, it's not going to break anything, but it just causes like some slowdowns or something like that. It's just not the right way to do it. If you wanted to use a blend, you could probably just do this. Well, no. Yeah, it's not best to use a blend to do it that way. It's better. This is the way I kind of always do it, so it's just more optimized with that. Okay, so here's a color. Let's switch this guy to something like a brown like this, and then I'm gonna quickly just add like a directional blur. And let me just increase this, and I'll just turn this angle here, maybe a little bit. Set this to like, all right, something like this. All right, so say we have these two guys, and now I want to blend these over top of each other. So let's do a blend. All right, so this is what we're getting here. And you can think of this like if we were, if you had something like this is like a motion blur or something like that, and we're compositing this over a background. And so here you can see kind of the blending that we're getting here. And it's a lot more realistic and photographic in this sense. Here's what happens, though, when we do this type of operation, this blending operation in sRGB space. So here I'm just going to enable sRGB. And when you look at it, you can see that you get like this dark edging around this. All right, so it's not nearly as good here. So what we can do with this is we're basically doing this operation here in linear space because we're working with all these linear color values. Now, that's just because we're working in this linear HDR mode. But what I want to show with you is kind of a tip. Like if you are working in sRGB space, and that's what you're going to do, here's a trick you can do. So let's copy these nodes here and let's paste them. Let's move this stuff down. So I'm going to go back to this node and set this to be sRGB. And for this to work, we don't even need to promote this up to floating point. Let's see, and let's go into this guy. Oh, he's already sRGB. Sorry, we'll do it like this. All right, and we'll turn on sRGB for that. So one of the things that we could do with this is, and you can do this in Substance Designer 5, which is pretty cool. So here I'm just going to do a convert to linear. So before I actually do my blending operation, what I could do is I'm going to convert this to linear space. And I'm going to do the same thing with this color. So let's do convert to linear, like this. Now notice here we still have this sRGB enabled here. So now I'm going to plug these guys in. Okay, and then I'm going to do a convert again. So one more back to sRGB here in the end. And so the colors are a little bit different than what I had up here because I switched them out of linear when I did it. But the idea that I want to show you here is that now, if you're working even in sRGB space, this is a kind of a cool way to get more realistic kind of blurs and you know, when you're compositing images like this together. And this is what I was kind of alluding to like early on. That one of the things that excites me about Designer as a digital compositor is that these were like kind of the workflows I was used to doing when I was using like a program like Shake or something like that. Or Digital Fusion when you wanted to do some type of linear compositing. So you have your color, you could convert it to linear space, do the mixing operation. Here we're just doing a blend. And then once you've done that in linear space, you then convert it back to sRGB and you get this nice fall off here between the blend, between the colors and things like that. So this works, you know, this is like kind of a good tip for that. Okay, so with that said, we can now, I want to show you this node that we were talking about. So I see some of the questions coming in about HDR Light Studio and stuff. And so that's another thing that we're kind of working towards with this. So if you wanted to create your own environment, you can do that. So we can go to File, a new Substance, and we actually have a new template that's already built for this. So you can just come in here to the Studio Panorama, and I'll just call this one ENV for my environment. And this here is just going to give me just some studio environment light setups here. So what I'm going to do just for now, just so I can view this, let's take my parent size. Let's do like 1024, 512. So here's my studio that I'm working with. And here's my lights. So what you have here with this node, there's a new node that we're shipping here in Designer 6 called the Panorama Shape node. And I'm going to show you how this works. So, you know, it's real simple to use. But this little template, what it does is it just, you know, sets this up for you so you can just do something really quickly. You could just create your own version of this as well. So it starts off by just giving you this background, and you can see this background here. It's set to 32 float for this, so it's just a generic background. You can change the keys here in the gradient editor. While we're here talking about the gradient editor, I'm gonna click this button here. Let's drag this guy over. A couple things about the gradient editor. You can now edit multiple keys at the same time. That's a huge one, and people asked about this a lot. So here's one thing. I can left click and now drag here to select all these keys. Once I have these keys selected, you'll see that the RGB, HS, they have this little delta value by them. That means that if I change one value, it's going to change it for all of them. I'm not going to do it because I don't want to mess up this gradient, but I can now move and edit all these keys at the same time. So that's just another kind of addition there to the gradient tool, multiple key editing. So we have our gradient map, and then in this section here you have these area lights, and these are using this Panorama Shape node. And all they're doing here for the blend, it's just adding, it's not even an add, it's just blend, it's just set to copy. So if you wanted to add your own, all you'd have to do is just grab the Panorama Shape node, add a blend, plug it in, and then output it. So you could add as many of these lights as you want. This template just gives you 3 to start. All right, so here's the image. I'm going to double click so I can view this first image here. And then I'm going to come over and take this guy and add that to my 3D view. So right click, drag and drop, and add it to my 3D view. All right, so here's this light. And like I said, we've got one little light panel here. Now, when I select this node, you can see this guy is using that transform widget that we discussed early on. So it's right here. Let me just roll up my base parameters here. So we can do things like change, do we want to work with a square or a disk? So here I'm going to set this to a disk. And then I can just start to move this guy. I can scale it up. And you can see that it's going to start repeating automatically and kind of warping around this environment as I work. So here, if I start to create my light like this, you can see that I'm getting like, this is kind of like this big dome light on top of all of my setup here. Then I can come into this guy and work with my intensity. So let's see what my intensity is. I'm gonna hit my info button, sample. Right now, it looks like I'm at 1.8 for my RGB for this guy. So if I wanted to increase the value for this, I could just increase the intensity. So as I bring this intensity value up, you can see where it's already starting to do some nice blooming in here. Let's look at our info palette again. You can see I've increased this to a value of like 35, 36 or whatever HDR value. So we can just kind of move this light around. Let's get it something like this here for the dome, this little light panel. Whoa, it's super bright. So I'm going to take this intensity down pretty low in this case. We'll zoom in. Hopefully you can see this in a video, but I'm getting some nice kind of blooming here. So let's say that I take this shape intensity and I drop this below 1. So now it's at like 0.5. So you'll notice that, you know, this is like a low dynamic range now since it's below 1. But we also have this little hotspot. So here's this hotspot intensity, and I can adjust this. I can adjust the hot spot size and fall off and so on. You also have the ability to blur the shape, the overall shape. So here I'm going to pull this guy back up to around 3. So then let's say that I want to work, let's see, I'll just move this guy up. So here, let's do this. Let's put him like, let's make a light something like this here. And then I'll just double click here so I can view my next. And I'll add this here to my environment. And I can move my lights around here. All right, so I'm going to grab this guy now. Grab his shape. And here I can just start to mess with this as well. So let's do something like maybe this. Here I'm going to change his color. Bring this guy over here. Notice here I've unchecked that sRGB, and I'm going to set kind of like a color for this guy. So now I'm just, you know, doing like a little side light here. And yeah, so this node just allows you to just kind of go and just create your own, you know, your own lighting setups. It's, you know, similar to, you know, something like HDR Light Studio. At this stage, it's not nearly as complex as HDR Light Studio, but, you know, you can create your own studio environments this way. Let's see, we'll, you know, pull our soft border up here and hotspot size, you know, stuff like this. If you want to add your own shape to this, you can do that as well. So let me show you how that works. So let's say I have my own shape. Let me do maybe polygon. All right, now for this guy, I do want to lock him to be square. So here is where I would come to my output size. I'm going to set it to absolute. And here I'll just do 1024 by 1024. So this is the shape that I'm getting. So on this node itself, okay, one question: Will it be possible will it be easy to export these HDRs? Yeah, it is. Let's take a look. So if we had this guy selected, all I have to do is just click save, and then I'm going to save this here as, in my case, I would just save it as an EXR. So we're going to save this as an EXR with all the HDR, you know, values and data intact to that, and then we could just save that wherever we, you know, wherever you would want to put your environment map there. So real easy to get that saved out. Okay, so going back to this guy, if we come down and we set this, we have this option here for enable texture input. So I'm going to set that here. Now, it's taking a color as input, so what I need to do is just convert this grayscale. This is like this little alpha shape, so I can convert this guy, and I can do that with just a gradient map. So I also want to make sure that for this guy I have a transparent background. So a really fast way to do that would just be to come into my gradient editor and just take the alpha to 0 for this guy. Oh, I'm sorry, I got to make a key. So in the black area, I'm just going to set my alpha to 0. So here's what we get, and we'll plug this guy in. All right, and then let's just view it here in my 2D view. So now I'm just using this custom shape. So now I've got this disk shape, and again, I can now still use the same control widgets to size. So now this is kind of like the softbox I've created with this. So here it is. Or is it on this side? Yeah, he's right here. Super large though, so we might want to make it smaller. All right, so there you go. You can see it in the environment. And then, like I said, if I want to be able to change, let's see, double click this guy, go back here. My shape intensity, right now it's just at 1, so we don't have any high dynamic values to this. So if I increase my, whoa, super big, super bright. But you can see I can now increase my my shape intensity of that to get some, high dynamic values to that lighting panel. And that's how I can create like a custom shape to that. Yeah, so that kind of covers the this new panoramic tool, kind of our HDR environment setup and things like that. And so, yeah, we're running about an hour. So if you guys don't mind, I'll go just a little bit more, and I'll kind of run through some of these scanning filters as well. Like to try to keep this at an hour, but if you guys don't mind hearing me talk, I'll keep going just a little bit more. One question here, why are the edges so aliased? That's just because of the resolution I set it at. So if I come into here and I set it at, whoops, I don't want to do something like 4K, but if I just make it a little bit, if I just make it a little higher resolution, it's a little cleaner here. And then if I wanted to, I could also go in and just slightly blur that shape too to kind of fix that. I like that comment, needs more lens flare, yeah. Okay, so let's take a look at this scanning stuff. So one of the things that Designer 6 really focused on a lot was this designer. Yeah, that's another thing, another person. Yeah, my environment map itself was very low resolution as well. It was 1024 by 512. Oh, one thing I forgot to mention before we kind of close out on the HDR stuff. The HDR stuff, you got to make sure you're in the GPU engine. So if you go to my tool switch engine, and you'll notice that I'm on the GPU engine for this. So just make sure you're on that. All right, so this is the scanning stuff. In Designer 6, we are, here, let me reset everything here. So scene, reset, and we'll view our outputs in 3D view. So you'll notice that like a lot of our tools, we have been moving more and more towards scanning and scanning. Scanning is becoming, a very adopted, really great workflow. And so we're adding more tools to be able to work with scans. It's not for everybody. And I don't want to give the impression, we're definitely not saying, oh, we're trying to get away from procedural and we're just going to do scans. Not at all. There's a place for both. So just, we like to make sure that we support, what people ask for. Again, just thanks to all you guys for all your feedback and comments that come in. We really appreciate it. We listen to it, and we try to give you guys exactly what you want. So with that said, let's take a look at some of these scan features here. Okay, so the thing that's really interesting about what this is kind of the overall kind of workflow that we're trying to add to this. So let's take a look at the overall story to this first. So if you come up to File, New Substance, let's say that you are in Designer and you have some scans and you want to work with these things here in Designer. So we have a couple of these templates to kind of help you with that. And the process of, if you're producing your own scans or you're getting raw scan data, you're always going to have to process and clean this data. And so that's kind of the tools that we're starting to bring towards Designer and Painter, ways of automating and working with the processes of cleaning and processing scan data. That's kind of where we are wanting to approach this, from a tools-based approach, not a content-based approach. Like, we're not saying, hey, we just opened up this scanning facility and that's what nothing like that. We want to be able to have the tools in your hands so that, you know, whether no matter what service you're working with, wherever you're getting your scans, you can work with them in Substance and process, clean them, do what you need to do. And so that's kind of where we're coming from. So with that said, we've got these templates here, and we've got two. So scan processing, physically based, supporting both workflows, meaning metallic roughness or specular glossiness. So yeah, I'm just going to choose metal rough. And so with that, you can see that, okay, well, I've got some outputs here, and then I've got a few basic nodes. And so here we've got this these basic nodes, like I said. So the idea becomes you get your scans, all right? And these scans are going to be photographed, you know, at specific angles, all right? So for example, if I take a look at this leather here, this is the resource. So this is the scan that I imported. We have this leather. Notice that its resolution is 5,530 by 7360 pixels. So it's a non-square image to start, and that's going to be typically the case. I mean, you're not going to scan something exactly square and all that kind of stuff. So we also have tools for working with that as well. So I've got this scan in, and you can see that this guy's set at 180, so you can see the light angles coming in. Here's another one from a 90-degree angle. So here's, you can see the lighting angle for this. Here's 270 and so on. So I've got this scan coming in from these multiple angles. So once you bring those in, the process becomes you want to be able to equalize, equalize the lighting for this so that we balance out the light and dark areas. From there, we want to be able to use these nodes here to extract data. So we want to be able to extract things like albedo, normal, and height from this scan. Then we want to be able to take those extracted maps as a material and tile them. And then once you have that, you basically have your scan material, and we output that. So you can see that this template that when you first open this up, it's very, very simple. It's giving you kind of we're going to equalize the lighting, we're going to extract information, we're going to tile the scan, and then we're going to create outputs. So that's basically what you're doing here. Now, let me run through an actual example of what this looks like. So for example here, I've already had this thing going once. Let me delete this. Again, I go through this like step by step in the tutorial video as well. So I'm going to run through this a little more quickly. I'll try to. I say that and then I hear just keep talking and talking. So sorry guys about that. But anyways, here's my images. And the first thing you do is you import your resources in, and you want to set these up in the order that you're going to be working with. So for example, what do I have here at first? This guy's like the 180 degree. And then the next one was 90. And then it goes to 0 angle. And then it goes to 270. So I'm kind of moving this around in a counterclockwise position. So I've got my 3 scans. Notice when I bring these guys in, they come in and they're square. Now, I've got this set to 512 by 512 right now. Again, you would work with this at a much higher resolution. I just did it right now, so it's just faster to work with in the graph while we do this demo. So yeah, it comes in and it's a square resolution. Well, obviously, I don't really want that. So the first stage of this would be to crop, this. So let's take a look at how that works with this new node. Now, these nodes can also be used for other things too. Like I say scanning, and that's kind of what they were built for the purpose. But I mean, you may use these for all kinds of different ways. So what I always do is just use this. I always use the search pop-up bar when I look for stuff. So I know to type multi, and I'll see it here. So we have this multi-crop. These nodes are also found underneath the material filters scan processing. So here you can get a view of all the new nodes, and you can see we ship with a lot of these guys for doing a lot of great stuff like AO cancellation, cloning and patching, cropping, color equalizing, and so on. So a lot of this good stuff here. So now that we have this, I'm going to select this node, and I need to set my input count. This is the number of samples that I have, which in my case are 4. So I have 4 textures. And this is in material mode. That's why we see this clamped. So I'm just going to hit 1 on the keyboard here to open this up. And then what I do is I just come in and I just plug these guys in. And make sure you do this in order. So like I said, I already have these laid out in the order that I want to work in. And we'll plug that in. Okay, so when I view this node here in my 2D view, this is the cropping node. So what this allows me to do is actually crop this texture that I want to work with. So since this was a non-square image, what I want to do first is, obviously I'm going to make sure that the show crop area, well, if you turn this on and off, this lets you see that crop area. Again, it's that cool transform widget tool that I talked about before. Like I said, this is a non-square image, so I want to input in the size of the original texture size. So if I remember right, that was 5,530, I think, by, I don't remember. Let's look. What was that guy? Let's get him out of the way. Oh, look at this, the 2D pan coming to save the day. Look, I can pan it right out of the way and see the value. It's so cool. All right, so 5,530, 7360. Let's see, 7360. Okay. So now you can see here, I have that actual aspect ratio correct. So then I'm going to come in here into my crop, and I'm just going to crop to an area that I want for this scan. So maybe I don't, there's maybe some noise up here I don't want, I don't know, but I'm just going to kind of choose this area like this. So once I have this set, I'll just turn my show crop to false, and now I have my scans, all of them now cropped down correctly, and they're all cropped together. Okay, so once you have that, the next thing I want to do is start to equalize this. So let's take a look at that process. So if I hit the space bar to see my tile, you can see that we get this, this unequal value range between our brights and our darks. So here you can see there's the dark and it's moving. It's just really showing this tiling pattern. So what I'm going to do is grab hold of my multicolor equalizer, and my input count, again, we're using 4. Input tile is set to false because we haven't tiled this yet. So let's just plug this stuff in. And we'll double click to view this in the 2D view. And it's already doing a lot of the magic for me with just kind of these basic settings. So you can see that we've already equalized. Here's the before and after. So here's the before, and then here is the after. And so now I'll just change my radius a bit and just make a little bit change to this. Around 0.07 kind of works for this. Oh, one thing I'll mention too, this scene file that I have, if you go to Substance Academy and check out the course, this entire package here is available to you. There's a Dropbox link in the description of that. So if you want to download and work with this graph and then have these leather scans to play around with, it's all there. So just so you know. Okay, so bam, we just equalized that. So now that we have that in place, we would then go through the process of extracting data. So let's take a look at that. Here, if I do a search for albedo, we have this multi-angle albedo node. I can't always say that. I keep forgetting the L. All right, so if we take a look at this guy here, we're going to go in and plug in the inputs that we have. So again, I have 4 textures. I need to set this to 4. So then I just plug in my inputs. And now I have an albedo. This is like a super simple node. There's no options. It's just bam, you have an albedo. Okay, then we can create our normal for this. So let's do this. Let's do multi, and then here you have multi-angle to normal. And once again, we need to set our samples. So let's set this to 4. And our format's going to be DirectX. That's what I'm working with here. One question here. Let's see. Was there any change in displacement display in the 3D? No. No change in the displacement display for the 3D view. Let's plug in our maps. Okay, so now I have my normal map. The important thing about this is that we need to come over here to this first sample light angle. So like I said, we want to make sure that we're working with these in an order. So like the first image I input, the lighting angle was at 180 degrees. And then, like I said, we're moving counterclockwise in the way that the angles were shot for this. So I think it was like 180, 90, 0, and then 270. So you can see that for the first sample light angle, you just set this to be 180. And then it says the next sample light angle, which means the very next image, is that in a clockwise or counterclockwise rotation. And you put, in my case, counterclockwise. And so that gives me my normal map. Also, if I want to do a height, we have a normal to height, high quality. So this is a new node, and we can just take this normal and plug this in and get a much better height. It's a bit more precision than what we had before from normal to height. This guy here, we can set its quality to high to work with just a little bit more better algorithm with that. And then you have things like your relief balance, height intensity, and format that you can work with. So, here we got our scans, we've cropped them, we've equalized the balance, or we balanced the light and shadow, we've extracted normal, normal, albedo, and height. And then from there, we can go into the process of using like cloning and patching and then tiling. So let's take a look at that. So if I start to type in multi, you'll notice that there's two different tools for this. So we have the multi-clone patch, and then we have the multi-clone patch grayscale. What I'm actually looking for, though, at this stage is I want to clone based on a material, because I've already extracted my maps like albedo, normal, and height. So I want to clone those 3 types of maps. So in that case, what I need to do is a search for material, and you'll see that I have material clone patch. So 3 options there. Now, for this guy, I'm going to set my channels. I'm not working with roughness or metallic. So basically, I just have these 3. So I've got my albedo. It says base color, but that's the same thing. And then I've got my normal and my height. So now when I double click this guy here, let's really expand this 2D view so we can see this. All right. So now when I select this guy, you can see again we're utilizing this transform widget, and I have my drop down here. So I have 2 options for this. So the first thing I'm going to do is come over to my transform, and I'm going to choose my target offset. So that's this guy. And so let's say that if I look at this guy, there's maybe a little bit of noise over in this area. So I want to clone this out. So I'm going to bring my target over to this area. And then I'm going to switch this to my source. And then this is going to be where I want to actually clone from. So I'm just going to increase the size of this guy. And over in this area, we have a lot less of these kind of little dark spots. So I'm going to clone from this area here. So we'll get a size about like this. So when I go back over to the options I have here for edge, you can notice that this kind of gray, well, you've got like this gray white area, which is like kind of showing me the source size. And then I have this gray area, which is showing my edge. And I can do things like if I start to adjust my threshold here, let's lower this down. You can see, it's just changing the overall shape of this. And this shape that's being created is following some of these cracked lines and stuff that's coming from the underlying image, which is really cool because it allows you to clone and match these guys into here, without seeing like a lot of seams or anything like that. So it works very intelligently in how it's trying to match these edges. So now that I have that, I can also go in and start to blur this shape. So let's add some blur. The grid resolution is going to help me. It's almost like subdividing how this edge detection stuff is going to work. So like if I set this to a real low value, well, that's too low. You can see this is the area that we get. So it's real rounded edges and stuff. We don't have a lot of resolution to really pick up all that fine edge detail. So if I start to increase the resolution of this, I'm starting to get, it's starting to kind of follow along kind of the edge of this, and it's just going to give me a better result. Okay, so basically I have that set up. All I have to do now is just show patch area, just turn it off. And so I've been able to clone the area that I selected here for my source over to here. It's going to be hard to see, especially probably in this video with compression and stuff, but let's select it. Here, let me try this. My target offset, I should still be able to move this, I think. Yeah, I can. I don't know if you guys can see it or not. But as I start to move this, you can see the clone taking place, and you can see how it's blending. I mean, it's really great how it's blending into these edges based on how that threshold and that grid resolution was falling along with those edges like that. So it really makes it very, very, very hard to have seams show up here. It's really nice. So that's a way to kind of process and clone or clean out areas of that. And we can just keep, stacking this clone patch if we want to. All right, so once that's in place, the last thing we're going to want to do with this is then tile it. So if I hit the space bar here, I can do my smart auto tile. So we'll add this in. And then this gives me my base color, normal, and height. I'll just plug these guys in. And let me hit the space bar so I can kind of see where the tiling is. And if I zoom in, yeah, I can see the seam right here. Hopefully it's apparent in the video. So now I would just go in and start to adjust my settings here. Like I could lower the threshold here a little bit. And there you can start to see where it's breaking up that edge. I still see a little bit of seam in here. So what I'm going to do is just come in and start to blur that. And now it's blending in so much better. Oh, I mean, to me, that looks decent enough. So there we go. Boom. I've got this, my base color, my normal, and my height all tileable now. And so that takes care of my tiled material, my scanned material. We've brought in the scans themselves, the raw source scans. We were able to process them all here in Designer, so we didn't have to go to Photoshop or anything like that. And you can see the way Designer works in this node-based system with these nodes. You get more flexibility, I think, because, you know, we can work with all these channels at the same time. It'd be kind of a nightmare to do this on a layer-based system. Okay, so one last thing that we can do that's interesting. This is a node that was in Substance Design, like the last Designer update, like 5.6 maybe. Color match. So I'm going to use color match here to then go in and change the color here for my base color or my albedo. So here, using color match, we've got our color mode. So it's set to average. I'm going to use average, and what that's going to do is take like the average sampling of the pixels value. So in our case, it's like this grayish color here. This is like the median value here. So what I'm going to do now is just go in and just set a color. So I can come in, let's see, let me take this to hue, HSV, drop the saturation maybe. Work with the value, so maybe something like this. And now I've just kind of colorized that scan. So here you can see I'm already viewing my outputs in 3D view. Let's just take this output color and just replace it. And now I get this. All right, so there we go. That takes care of how I can work with scan data, and that covers some of the core scan filters that are in Substance Designer 6. Okay, so one question here, how were these scans made? And could you import, say, I would, yeah, you could import 50 plus scans, I think, if you work that way. Here, let me see something. Let's do this. Where's that multi-crop? Okay, so here with these scans on that multi-crop, it looks like it's set at a max of 8. So it looks like right here you're working with a max of 8. So this would be another scenario where you could just open up the reference to this graph and then you can just add more if you want. But yeah, please, if you guys feel like, oh wait, no, typically we would have 20 or so. If we need more, let us know. We would obviously add those in as well. Again, every time you get any of these updates or any of these nodes, all of the nodes are available to you, the source file of the node. So in case you didn't know that, let's do, well, you could actually open the reference to this guy. And if you open it, it'll show up here. So this is the crop node, and you can see where we've just added, and we have the 8 options. Now it shows this little lock, and that's because this is opened up in from the C drive. So another way to do this, and I'll just show you in case you haven't seen this. Here's multi-crop. If I right click on this guy, you can see it gives me this little link for the file. So I'll click this, and it opens up a window explorer, and it shows you on your PC, it shows you where the actual SBS file is. So what I would recommend is, say you want to change the crop node, you know, find it this way through the library, and then just take it and just copy it out of, don't move it, but just copy it out of the resource package that's on the C drive, and put it wherever you want. And then when you open that in Designer, it won't be locked, and you can tweak it, you can change it any way that you guys need. Also, that's a really good way for learning. Like if you see a node that we have that you're like, man, I wonder how they did that. You can open up any node that we did and see every single thing. Nothing's locked. Everything's wide open. So that's good for learning as well. So yeah, there's more to that question, I think. How were these scans made? I didn't do the scans, so I'm not 100% sure. But what we have though, actually, we had this global meeting event. It was about a week and a half ago. It was really awesome. I got to go to Paris. I got to go to Clermont-Ferrand to see all the engineers. It was an amazing time. And so while I was there in the Paris office, I saw some of our kind of scan tables that we have. So they have like this setup to where you can put materials down. You have your camera on top, and it has a lighting setup, and then you can spin the lighting around to hit these different degrees. So for example, like I said, the first one was shot at with a light 180. Then they move the device so it moves the kind of the light over to get all these different angles. So that was, I'm assuming, how they did this. Could have come from a scan from one of our partners. They could have just gave it to us. I'm not really sure. We do have on our blog post, if you go into algorithmic.com and check out our blog, just in the search, do a search for scan. And we do have a blog post we did on how we were photographing scans. It's really, really interesting to see how that was done. So I'd recommend checking that out. Okay, so everybody, we're running it's about an hour and a half stream here. So I think it's time to go ahead and close everything out. I really appreciate everybody coming and joining us in for the stream. Just in case you're wondering, another thing that's kind of interesting about our streams is that now that we have Substance Academy, you can actually view the Twitch streams directly from the Substance Academy page. So if you go to the tutorials, I think it's .academy.com, or you can just do a search for Substance Academy, it'll show up. There's a Twitch icon, and when we go live on Twitch, on the Twitch icon, you'll see it turns red to let you know that we're streaming right then. And if you click that button, it'll take you to a page in Academy that shows the Twitch streams happening straight from there. So it's just another cool way to kind of catch the streams and such. Yeah, can I link that? Yeah, sure. I can send that as a message here. Let me see. I think I actually already have it. Let's see. Here, bear with me for just a second, and I'll get you the link to that scan. It's right here. I just looked it up, actually. Here we go. All right, so I'm just going to post it right here in the comment. There we go. Yeah, so check that out. It's really interesting. That was written by one of our developers in the Paris office. So yeah, like I said, we're gonna close out this stream. Before we do, I'd like to just give a special thanks to the team at Algorithmic who worked on Substance Designer 6. I know they poured a lot into this update, and they worked a lot at long hours. And so, like I said, I got to really meet those guys face to face over the last week or so, and it was really amazing. I mean, the people at Algorithmic they're just brilliant, and it's amazing. It's very humbling for me to be around people that are of that caliber. All I do is I ask them questions like all day long. Just how do you do this? How do you it's awesome. But yeah, I just want to give a special shout out to those guys. Also, I want to give a special shout out to Nicholas Weirman. He's the product designer for Substance Designer, and he helped me out a lot with running through a lot of these nodes and tutorials. And I also want to give a shout out to Jerome, who also works on product design. Jerome did a lot. Jerome is the one who created all of the scanning filters. He's a brilliant guy, knows a ton about scanning and how to work with these filters and stuff. So a lot of these tools that you see are coming down into Painter and Designer are coming from Jerome. So that guy's top notch. And so again, just special thanks out to all those developers who've been working on the tool set. Man, those guys they're really something. So thanks a lot, everybody. I really appreciate your time, and just keep it tuned to our Twitch. Our Twitter, because we'll post out when we got new streams coming and stuff. So yeah, we're trying to get these coming at a much more regular basis. So thanks a lot, everybody, and I'll see you on the next stream.